We're working on factoring trinomials. Factoring trinomials depends on an understanding of multiplication of binomials, so let's start there. If I multiply x plus 2 times x plus 3, and I have to multiply each of these by each of these, I'll have x squared, and then for my x term I'm going to get plus 2x plus 3x, so plus 5x. And for my last term, 2 times 3 is 6. If I had x minus 2 times x minus 3, I'm still going to start with x squared. This time my middle term is going to be negative, but my last term is going to be positive because negative 2 times negative 3 is still positive 6. Okay, so those are the ones where I'm winding up with a positive 6 at the end. If I change the signs here, so I have x plus 2 times x minus 3, what changes? I'll have x squared, and then for my middle term, I'll have negative 3x plus 2x is negative 1x. I'm actually going to write the 1 in there, although it certainly isn't needed. And positive 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. If I had x minus 2 times x plus 3, I'll have x squared, and this time my middle term will be positive 1x, and the constant at the end is going to be negative 6 again. So I think what we want to notice here is that my first term is the product of the first two in the parentheses. My last term is the product of the last two in the parentheses. And when the last term was positive, the absolute value of the middle term was the sum of the small inside and outside products. When the last term was negative, the middle term, its absolute value, so 1, was the difference of the 2 and the negative 3, the absolute value of their difference, and here as well. Okay? But that's the easy case where the coefficient of x squared is 1 when you're factoring. So now we need to look at some multiplication examples where the coefficient of x squared is going to turn out to be something other than 1. So let's take a look at some examples of that. And we'll start with 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 4, and this is going to be 6x squared. And now when I add, I've got 3x and 8x, so plus 11x plus 4. 2x minus 1 times 3x minus 4. I'll have the same first term, the same last term, and this time the middle term will be negative. Oops, slid off the view there. Okay. 2x plus 1 times 3x minus 4 will give 6x squared, and this time I've got positive 3 from this product and negative 8 from that product. So I'm going to have negative 5x, and positive times the negative is negative, so negative 4 at the end. If I switch the signs around, I'll have 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 4, and this will result in 6x squared plus 5x minus 4 because this time I've got negative 3 and positive 8. So what is there to notice? We need to notice that the first coefficient, the coefficient of x squared, comes from the product of the 2 and the 3. The 4 at the end, and we always had a 4 whether it was positive or negative, the 4 at the end comes from the 1 and the 4. The constant 4 is positive when the signs were the same. The 4 is negative at the end when the signs are different. When the signs are the same, we need the 1 times 3 and the 4 times 2. We want their sum to be 11. And then the sign will be positive if these guys are positive and negative if these are negative. When the sign of the constant term is negative, we want the difference of the 3 and the 8 to equal this number. And it will either be positive or negative here. That will control where we put the signs here when we get to factoring later. So that's the review of the multiplication part of factoring trinomials. In the next video, we'll start to take a look at factoring trinomials.